They tried to burn his friends. They tried to feed him to lions. A hand appeared. Only him could understand the writings. A king became mad overnight. He fed on grass like an animal. Empires rising and falling before they even existed. A prayer delayed by something unseen. Who was this man that kingdoms feared? This is where it began. Jerusalem was falling, not slowly, not with warning. It fell the way everything precious falls, all at once, before you're ready. Nebuchadnezzar's army didn't just want the city. He wanted something specific. He wanted the best of it. He sent his commanders into the noble houses, the royal estates, the schools of the learned, and the instruction was precise. Find the young men, the exceptional ones, the ones with no physical defect, sharp minds, quick understanding, the ones built to serve in a king's palace. And in that chaos of destruction, 4 names were written on a list: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Say those names slowly. Let them land, because in a matter of days, those names would be erased. That was the plan. Babylon didn't just conquer with armies, it conquered with assimilation. Change the name, change the language, change the food, change the god, and eventually you change the man. They gave them new names. Daniel became Belteshazzar, Hananiah, Shadrach, Mishael, Meshach, Azariah, Abednego. Just like that, 4 Jewish teenagers had been handed new identities, new clothes, new teachers, new language, a new world. But here is where the story really begins, because Daniel, whatever they called him, was already someone before they took him. And that is the hardest thing to steal from a person. Not their city, not their family, not even their name. The hardest thing to take is who they know they are. The king's training program was lavish. 3 years of Babylonian education, the finest food from the royal table, wine from the king's own cup. For most of these exiles, it might have felt like a gift, a terrible, beautiful, gilded gift. But Daniel looked at that table and felt something tighten in his chest. The food was wrong, not by taste, not by look, but by what it represented. In Jewish law, in everything Daniel had been formed by, eating the king's food meant more than nutrition. It meant participation. It meant alignment. It meant, I am yours now. Daniel was not theirs. And so, quietly, without a speech, without a protest, without a revolution, he made a request. He went to the official in charge of them, a man named Ashpenaz, and he asked simply to not eat the royal food. Ashpenaz liked Daniel. That part matters. It says he showed favor to Daniel. But Ashpenaz was also afraid. If you look worse than the others, the king will take my head. Daniel didn't argue. He didn't demand. He proposed a test. Give us 10 days, vegetables, water. Then look at us, compare us to the others, and let the results speak. 10 days. That is all Daniel asked for. Now stop and think about what this moment is. A teenager, a captive, in a foreign empire, surrounded by the king's men. Would they starve? Would their bodies betray them? Would their faith hold? He could have rationalized it. I have no choice. God will understand. it's just food. But that is exactly how identity erodes, not in one dramatic betrayal, but in 100 quiet compromises. The 10 days passed, and when Ashpenaz looked at Daniel and his 3 friends, and then looked at the others who had eaten the royal food, they were healthier, sharper eyes, stronger frames, something in their faces that the others didn't have. The official switched them permanently to vegetables and water. But here is what the text says that most people rush past. God gave them knowledge, skill, understanding, and Daniel specifically was given something else, the ability to understand visions and dreams. That gift would change everything. Nebuchadnezzar was not sleeping well, and when the most powerful man in the known world doesn't sleep well, everyone suffers. He had dreamed something massive and violent and real, the kind of dream that feels more like a visitation than a vision. He woke up, and the dream was gone. Not faded, gone, like smoke through a fist. So he called in his wise men, his astrologers, magicians, diviners, the entire intellectual apparatus of the Babylonian Empire. And he told them, "Tell me what I dreamed, and then tell me what it means." The room went silent. Not the silence of thinking, the silence of terror. The wise men looked at each other, then back at the king. "Tell us the dream, O king, and we will interpret it." Nebuchadnezzar shook his head. "No, you tell me the dream, then interpret it." Because here was the king's real question, not theological, not spiritual, strategic. He was testing them, testing whether they had actual power or whether they had been faking it for years with clever language and impressive language. If they could tell him what he dreamed without being told, they were real. If not, he ordered the execution of every wise man in Babylon, all of them, which included Daniel. Daniel heard about the execution order from a soldier. A man named Arioch had come to collect him, and Daniel asked him to wait, calmly, without panic. "Give me time," he said, "and I will give the king his answer." He went home, he told his 3 friends, and then they prayed. Not with performance, not with noise, just 4 young men in a room in an empire that wanted them dead, asking for something only one source could provide. And in the night, the mystery was revealed. Daniel saw it. The statue, massive, blinding, gold head, silver chest, bronze belly, iron legs, feet of clay, and then a stone cut not by human hands, striking the feet, and the whole thing collapsed, became dust, and the stone became a mountain that filled the earth. Daniel didn't run to the king immediately. He stopped and he worshipped. He said, "Wisdom and power belong to God. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings." He acknowledged the source before he touched the prize. That detail is not small. He went to Arioch. "Don't kill the wise men. Take me to the king." And when Daniel stood before Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful human being on earth, the king asked, "Are you able to tell me what I dreamed?" Daniel looked at him and said, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain this mystery to the king, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." Then he described it. The gold head, Nebuchadnezzar's own kingdom, the silver, a kingdom coming after, the bronze, another, the iron, a fourth, stronger, crushing all others, the feet of clay, division, fragility hidden inside strength, and then the stone, the kingdom that would outlast them all. Nebuchadnezzar fell to his face on the floor before a 20-something Jewish exile and said, "Truly, your God is the God of gods and the Lord of kings and a revealer of mysteries."
Daniel was promoted, given gifts, made ruler over the province of Babylon. His 3 friends elevated with him. But wait, if this was the end of the story, it would be a good one. It is not the end of the story. Because power, even power that bows, eventually rises back up. And when it rises, it builds monuments to itself. No one knows exactly why he did it. Maybe the dream haunted him. Maybe he couldn't accept that his kingdom, his gold, would eventually be replaced. Whatever the reason, Nebuchadnezzar built a statue, not a modest one, 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide, all gold. He erected it in the plain of Dura, visible for miles in every direction. And then he summoned everyone, every satrap, every governor, every official, magistrate, commander, and judge, every person of rank in the entire empire. They all came and stood before it, and a herald announced, "When you hear the sound of the horn, the pipe, the lyre, the trigon, the harp, the drum, and every kind of music, you will fall down and worship the golden image. Whoever does not fall down and worship shall be thrown into a burning fiery furnace." Notes clashed across the plain. The sound hit thousands of hearts at once. The music played. Everyone fell. Thousands of people dropping to the ground in one wave. Everyone, except 3. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego. Standing. In a sea of prostrated bodies, standing. The Chaldeans, the Babylonian officials, saw them, and they moved fast. They went straight to the king. "O king, live forever. You issued a decree. The sound played. Everyone fell. But there are certain Jews, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, men you appointed, O king, and they do not serve your gods. They did not bow." Nebuchadnezzar heard this, and something happened in him, something volcanic. The text says his face changed, his expression shifted into something that made the officials around him take a step back. He ordered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego brought to him. They stood before him. He looked at them, these men he knew, and he asked, "Is it true?" Then, a moment of strange mercy, or perhaps calculation. "I will give you one more chance. When the music plays, if you fall down and worship, good. But if you do not," he leaned forward, "then what God will be able to deliver you out of my hands?" 3 men, an empire, a furnace, and a question no one in that room believed had an answer. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego looked at the king, and they spoke, not with rage, not with trembling, with something that is harder than both, calm.
"O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, we will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the golden image that you have set up."
but if not. Do you understand what those 3 words mean? They weren't saying, God will save us, and that's why we're doing this. They were saying, we don't know what God will do, and it doesn't change our answer. That is not blind optimism. That is something rarer, something harder. That is conviction without conditions.
Nebuchadnezzar's rage ignited, literally. He commanded his soldiers, heat the furnace 7 times hotter than normal. 7 times hotter. The air near the entrance shimmered like molten gold. It became a wall before they even reached the door. And then the fire roared, hotter than anything these men had seen. Soldiers burned before they could even reach them. Strong men, armed men, men who had nothing to do with the decision being made. The fire killed the executioners before it could touch the condemned. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, still in their clothes, their robes, their turbans, were thrown into the furnace. Smoke curled into the sky. The whole crowd watched. Nebuchadnezzar watched. And then something made him stand up. He stood up suddenly. The text says he was astonished. He turned to his officials. Did we not cast 3 men bound into the fire? True, O king. Then a figure appeared, walking among the flames. No one could explain it. Not the soldiers, not the king, not even the wise men who had studied the skies their entire lives. But I see 4 men, unbound, walking in the middle of a fire. And the fourth is like a son of the gods. 4 men, unbound, walking in the middle of a fire that had already killed the men who threw them in. Whatever you believe, whatever your framework, something was in that fire, something that could not burn, something that walked with them in the place that was supposed to end them. Nebuchadnezzar approached the door of the furnace. His voice, the same voice that had ordered the execution, now called out, "Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out." They walked out. The satraps, governors, officials, all of them crowded around. They looked. The fire had not touched their bodies, not their hair, not their robes. Smoke curled into the sky, but did not touch them. Not even the smell of fire was on them. Nebuchadnezzar spoke, not in rage this time, in something that sounded almost like awe. "Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who trusted in him. They set aside the king's command. They yielded up their bodies rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. He made a new decree. No one in any people, nation, or language could speak anything against their God, because, the king said it himself, there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way." And the 3 men were promoted again. They walked into the furnace as condemned men. They walked out as something the empire had no category for. Here is what's easy to miss in this story. Nobody rescued them before the fire. There was no last-minute political intervention, no earthquake, no escape tunnel. They were thrown in, and whatever was going to happen happened inside the fire, not before it. We tend to believe that real faith means being kept from the furnace, but this story says something more difficult than that. It says sometimes the evidence of God's presence is not absence of the fire, it's the 4th figure inside it. And here's the other thing. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego never knew there would be a 4th figure. When they stood before the king, when they said, "But if not," they hadn't been promised rescue. They chose conviction without a guarantee. That is what makes them extraordinary. Not the miracle, the answer they gave before the miracle arrived.
Daniel was not in this particular story. He was elsewhere in the empire at this point. But Daniel was the one who had formed these men, who had first modeled what it looked like to hold your identity in hostile territory. The food test wasn't about food. The prayer wasn't about the dream. The furnace wasn't about fire. It was always about one question. Who are you when everything is designed to make you someone else? These 4 men, teenagers when they arrived in chains, became the most dangerous kind of people that empires ever encounter. People who cannot be threatened because they have already decided what they will not trade away. Before you go, I have one question for you, and I want you to really sit with it. If you were standing in that crowd, music playing, thousands falling around you, and you had 30 seconds to decide, would you bow? Not a theological question, a personal one, because every one of us has a furnace. Maybe it's a relationship, a career, a culture, a crowd, and the music plays and everyone around you bends. What do you do? Drop your answer in the comments, and if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs it. Because people like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego aren't ancient history, they're a blueprint. And this was only the beginning. Daniel's story would take him further, to lions, to visions, to mysteries no empire could contain. That story is coming next.